Kumlena Ablat Gemara. Today's daf in Sotah Daf Chav Gimel Amud Aleph. We completed the Mishnah where we talk about a number of differences between a woman and a man, and we also talk about a woman who's married to a kohen, because generally the korban mincha that a kohen brings up is different than the korban mincha that an ordinary Yisrael brings up. If a kohen brings up a mincha is made up of two parts. There's the part that you kaimitz, that you scoop off, and then there is the balance of shirayim. So the way it works by an ordinary person is that you do the kmitza, which is tantamount to like the sprinkling of the blood by an animal, and you place that on the mizbeach and it gets burnt, and then the shirayim is eaten by a kohen. And in fact, the din is, we learn from a pasuk that kol shehu mimenu l'ishim, if you put part of the korban on the fire, then hareyu bal saktiri, you're not allowed to roast the rest. The rest, it gets eaten or whatever happens to it, but you cannot put it on the mizbeach. That is by a Yisrael. But by a kohen, it says kol, the entire animal, the entire korban mincha gets burnt, and nobody eats from it. Seichel says nobody eats from it. So we're talking now about if the wife of a kohen is the one who's accused of being a Sotah, she brings a korban mincha, and here is it's not exactly a shutfus as Taisus points out, but it's sort of him and her. He pays for it, so he has an involvement in the korban, but she is the one who's on the receiving end. She is the one who's in this chaper, and therefore she has a part of it. And the question is, how is it treated? Like a kohen's or like a Yisrael? Even if she's a bas kohen, when it comes to for a woman, makes no difference bas kohen or Yisrael. So how does it work? Says the Gemara, we learned, kol hanisiyas l'kohanim, anyone who's married to a kohen is minchaseyen nisrafas. What happens to their korban mincha? The korban mincha gets entirely burnt. What do you mean gets entirely burnt? Why does it get entirely burnt? How does it work? So Gemara explains. Keita, how does it work? Kohenis levi of Yisrael makes no difference. Shenisas the kohen married to a kohen. On the one hand, you cannot eat the korban mincha like anyone else who's a bas kohen or levi Yisrael. The kohen has a share in it, and the kohen, by him, the mincha gets entirely burnt. The eina oile kol, you cannot burn it entirely on the mizbeach like a kohen, because she has a chelik in it, because she's the one on the receiving end. She's the one who's going to be nizchaper. And what do we do? So Ella hakoimitz karabat. You know what the Brisa says? The koimitz you burn on mizbeach. Now the real problem is, so you do a kmitza as if it's a Yisrael, but b'shirayim, we say maybe it's a kohen. So you don't give it to each of the kohen. What do you do with it? Kreivin ba'atzman. Now what? It sounds like me that you go ahead and you burn it on mizbeach separately. Now the question is, how can you burn on the mizbeach separately? We just said before that a korban, if you did a kmitza, you don't do a shirayim on the mizbeach. So, and the reason why you burn mizbeach is to satisfy the kohen. Says the Gemara, why don't we call over here kol shehu mimenu l'ishim harei bal saktiri, that if you burn part of it, you cannot burn the rest of it. So what's going on there? Amar Yehuda b'rei Rav Shimon Pasi. Says Yehuda, the son of Rav Shimon Pasi. The masik lahu shemeitzi. What you do is you say that the balance of this korban mincha, because I don't know what to do with it, I am going to burn on mizbeach so nobody eats from it, but I cannot burn mizbeach because maybe it's Yisrael. So I'm going to use it as fuel. I'm going to say that I'm putting mizbeach just like a piece of wood to add fuel. And Rashi says you make a tanai, you stipulate that if this, this is if it's the koyens, so then it all gets burned properly, and the kmitza wasn't really a kmitza. But if it's the Yisrael, then you're not allowed. If it's hers, then you're not allowed to actually burn it. So we're using it as fuel. Taisus has a problem with this kind of a tanai, and he gives his own explanation. Ablaza says, you cannot bring it up as a reich nechayach, but you could bring it up for wood. And what happened there was the limbs of a korban chatas, they got mixed up with the limbs of korban oila. By a korban chatas, it goes to kohen. By an oila, it gets burnt in mizbeach. So Ablaza said, what you do is you put them all in mizbeach, and you say as follows: that the part of this, whichever we can mix up, we don't know. The part of the chatas is burning on the mizbeach to be firewood, fuel, not to burn as a korban. The Chacham disagree. They say that you have to leave overnight and let it turn into nicer. Says the Gemara. So the same thing over here. So with her mincha, we burn the rest and we say it's fuel. So the Gemara, that only makes this Rabbi believes in the svara that you can say that it's fuel. El Rabbanus said we don't. But in the case of they've already chatas, we say leave it overnight and let it to us and let it become like nice, and you have to burn the whole thing because it's no longer suitable for the mizbeach. So according to them, what do you do with the mincha of the wife? Mike, what are you going to say? Says the Gemara, the Avdiluhu Rabbi Elazar Rab Shimon. So now what? We follow the view of Rabbi Elazar but Rab Shimon. So that's what the Kohen do. They follow Rab Shimon. Tanya, what's Rabbi Elazar Rab Shimon? The Tanya we learned as follows. We learned Rabbi Elazar Rab Shimon. Rabbi Elazar Rab Shimon says, here we're talking about a Kohen who's bringing a mincha that he committed a sin. For example, he went to the Beis Hamikdash and he didn't realize that he was tamei, or he had kachim and didn't realize he was tamei. So, or if you let's say about a shavua, these things you bring a special kind of a carbon called a carbon oil. It's commensurate to your status, to your economic status. So if you are well-to-do, you bring an animal, or not so pigeons. If you're poor, dalus, then you go ahead and you bring what? You bring a flower offering. So the question is, when a kohen brings a minchas chayta, what happens then? Do we also do the same thing? The entire thing is burnt in the mizbech. We do a kmitza. How's it work? So the pasuk says, "V'hoisel lakoyin." Said the pasuk should be lakoyin kim mincha. Don't say kim mincha like his other minchas that he brings. It just says kim mincha like a mincha. So there's an argument how to learn pshat. So the chachamim say means like his other minchas, which means that the menachas means what you burn the entire thing on the mizbech, and there is no kmitza. Because by a coin, the entire thing is burnt. Kmitz is only when you scoop part of it from mizbech, a bit balance is permitted, like zrik of a blood. No, the entire thing goes on the mizbech. However, Rab Shimon disagrees. He says that no, that it's part like that it's like a mincha of Yisrael. You do a kmitza, but when it comes and the kmitz comes along, Rab Shimon says hakoymitz. And Rab Shimon says, and so part like a Yisrael, part like a Kohen, we do kmitza like Yisrael, and the balance gets burned as mizbech like by a Kohen. Rab Shimon says the balance gets burned, but not on the mizbech. The balance gets burned. We don't do entirely like Yisrael that the balance gets eaten. We burn it, but not on the mizbech. We throw it, toss it away. We scatter it on the mountain of ashes there, and we toss it away. So therefore, we follow those of Shimon, and that's what you do with her mincha, part of the kmitza, and the rest we just throw away on the ashes. And then going much further, it's not just Rabbi Elazar Shimon. Even the Rabbanon who argued over Shimon, and they say by minchas chayta by koyin, the entire thing is burnt on the mizbeach. Like please, Rabbi Elazar Shimon, minchas chayta should koyin only by mincha of a sin of a koyinim the pasak kravi, because since we compare his minchas chayta to his minchas nedava, if he offers a nedava mincha, what happens is it gets totally burnt on mizbech, and there's no kmitza. So therefore, here also there's no kmitza. You burn the whole thing on mizbech. On the other hand, but over here, al baha, if you go after her, she's a Yisrael by Yisrael. You do need kmitza. And what happens to Shirayim? It has to be eaten, so we cannot just put it on mizbech. So in this case, but you just throw it on the ashes. Okay, then the Mishnah Bas Yisrael Hanasuyin. Bas Yisrael is married to a kohen. My time, what is the reason? Why is it that Minchas Kohenes is treated like a Bas Yisrael and gets eaten? If she's not married to a kohen, or she's married to a kohen. And you don't follow like by male. So Gemara says, "My time no krov chamichas koyin kolotia." Let's say koyin lekenes, only a koyin, not a kehenes. Kohenes mischaleles, koyin mischalel. If she lives with someone that's also to her, she herself can never marry a koyin. And her children become chalalim, they're not koyinim. But a koyin who lives with somebody in sin, a divorcee or a convert, he, as long as he's married, he cannot serve as a koyin. The moment he divorces her, or she dies, he reverts back to a kohen. How do we make a difference? No longer cross. It says the problem is the children, not himself. How do you know regarding the woman herself? So Rashi already says, because it says lo yechalel, it sounds like shnei chilulim. In plural, it could have said lo yachal. Lo yechalel means two people get impacted, her and the children. So anyone further, Kohen Matama, she's allowed to be Matama to anybody, but a Kohen has, cannot be Matama to anybody except as a 7 immediate relatives or makes mitzvah. My time, why? I'm a cross as an emer, like Kohen in Bnei Adam. Bnei Adam is only relegated to the males. Kohen, Eichel B'Kochim, a Kohen eats Kochim. Let's see what it says. Kol Zachar B'Bnei Adam, Yechlan Shuri. kosher, which can only be eaten inside the base of Mikdash, is only for males. Kosher kalim, she can also eat. Ish, what is the difference between a man and a woman? And the Mishnah lists a number of things between the difference in a man and a woman. Tosfos asks, there's a whole bunch of differences between a man and a woman. And why doesn't the Gemara list it? And he doesn't really answer. But Tosfos brings here a fascinating Tosefta, which it's not the point of Tosfos, but if you look at the wording of the Tosefta, it's very revealing. Tosfos and Krisis says that sometimes you have a paucity of information in one place, but you have a little bit of information somewhere else, and they complement each other. You just have to realize how to put them together. So the whole machlekes Rabbeinu Tam and the Rambam, whether women are permitted to perform mitzvahs asay shehazman grama or not. Rambam says no bracha. Rabbeinu Tam says can even make a bracha in kedushin of Lamed Aleph, Erevin, Rosh Hashanah, a number of places, and the Ritva and other Rishonim in kedushin Lamed Aleph and other places ask how can a woman make a bracha of a tzivanu? When was she instructed? So the general answer is because tzivanu is collective klal yisrael, and since men are mechuyev, so she can say she's entitled to say tzivanu or ishtek gufa. The different explanations they give, but there is a Beinu Hill, an explanation of Titus Kain, which is brought down in Kevin Shiurim at the end of his Kedushin of the Lamed Aleph, where he says the following: the difference, an unbelievable chiddush, when it comes to mitzvahs asay shehazman grama, the difference between men and women are not that women are potter and men are chayiv. They all have exactly the same mitzvah, but men will be punished if they don't do the mitzvah, and women will not be punished if they don't do the mitzvah. But if they do want to do the mitzvah, they have the same mitzvah as men. Therefore, they can make a bracha tzivanu, not because men are chayiv, because they have a tzivui as well to do the mitzvah, which is an unbelievable chiddush. And you wonder where you got it from. Tosfos quotes here a Tosefta, which is fascinating. Tosfos wants to know, why don't we mention that women are potter for mitzvah seishas mangram and men are chayiv? But he's wording the Tosefta as follows. If you look in Tosfos and for Gimel and Beis, the second Tosfos, Ma ben Ish Lisha, Tosfos brings the Tosefta. The Tosefta counts other differences in men and women. It doesn't say that men are chayiv in mitzvah say and women are potter. It says, "Oiver kochoshiv, oiver a mitzvah seishas mangrama, mashen kein beisha." That a man is oiver if they don't fulfill the mitzvahs of mangrama, and a woman is not oiver and avera. Clearly, this is what Rabbeinu Hill says. So the mitzvah part, they're equal. It's the whether they're oiver if they don't do it, which is fascinating. Okay. Then let's continue a number of differences in the Mishnah gives. So the Gemara says one difference is, tell them what we learned. Talks about tzaras, whether they have to let the hair grow, whether they rip the clothes. Ish, ain't ish. All we know is a man. Ish and Haino b'chal, the minute the din of tzaras apply to a woman as well. Says the Gemara because it's showing when it says in Pasuk, the hatzerua talks about tzaras and then says the hatzerua as if there's another tzerua that refers to women. Asher boy harikan shnayim too. In came matam ish. The Pasuk before which says each tzerua. Why is it male if it makes no difference male or female? Tam liinyan shalamata. But the following doors, which talks about each pareh, a man lets his hair grow and has to rip his clothes, does not apply to women, only ish. Then we look at Nazir Chavtesa ish, only a man has that right. I'm not being had a machlek to beichin. Shlakish Gemara only quotes Rabbi Yechanan, halachim and halachim ma'isina. If it's to follow exact prescription. But a man can use the kabbalah his father set aside. If he set aside money, only if it's stamped, didn't specify what's what, or if he set aside animals and the son became a nazir. Afterwards, machlekes became nazir as well during the time as well. He can use those kabbalas. Only a man. Why? Halachi ben nazir. Halacha Moshe Messina asks no questions. Only a man can marry off his daughter. I gave my daughter away, and we trust him. And we had him. A man can sell his daughter. A woman can't. Only a man. A man can be stoned naked. My time. Why? He said, my him, a woman doesn't get skilla, but clearly they both get skilla. Means him, only his body and nothing else. Not her, but like susa. So why do we have a homachlek before Nachman, and all that? Because from these parts alone, we would say, okay, you have to cover just the parts. I know to cover other parts of the body as well. And that's where after where Nachman said, "Beroy Misa Kala." Find the easiest way, less pain, less shame. The whole discussion we had. Each need when a man gets hanged the ain, but my time across the pussy, but Lisa, on him not her. Each nimka beginay vasa, the ain each in the if she steals and doesn't have can, and she is destitute, she cannot make any restitution. You don't sell her as a slave. My time across the nimka beginay vasa, beginay vasa. On him, not her. We actually learn a number of other things in this pasuk. You only get sold for the gneva, not for if you cannot pay the penalty of kafel and other things. Nevertheless, we can learn a few things out of the same pasuk as the Rishonim say. Hadin aloch hayanit. This ends today's year, and we'll start the Mishnah tomorrow, the next page.